What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the NESN Red Sox podcast. I'm Ricky Doyle, joined as always by Dakota Randall. Dakota, things seem to happen right after we record a podcast.
Yeah.
Have you noticed this?
I
This
have,
is our
yeah.
third one of the season, and it feels like the second we leave the studio, something happens that night. The last one we did was right before the home opener, and then we saw... the first one we did was right before the home opener, and then it turned out to be a pretty eventful series against the Rays. You had the walk-off win, and Xander Bogaerts had like an offensive onslaught in one of the games. They had the 8-7 come from behind victory. A lot to really take in.
Yeah, then the next one was just before the brawl, right?
Just before the Yankee series, you figure you set the table a little bit, and obviously crap hit the fan there. Had the big brawl, had them, just the 14-1 spanking even in the series opener, and then Rick Porcello flirt with a no-hitter. So just things seem to happen. So you're probably going to want to tune into we're recording this on Wednesday, so Wednesday night's Red Sox game. Probably going to want to tune in, stay up late for that one.
Yeah, chances are something big happens Wednesday or Thursday.
But anyways, this team looking pretty sharp, firing on all cylinders. Another big win for the Red Sox on Tuesday night in their series opener against the Angels, which is really kind of I guess you could call this the first true test of the season. I mean, so far the Red Sox have faced some lackluster competition. So
I mean, we still should not be calling the Yankees lackluster competition. I know they're
struggling.
All right. I know they're struggling,
I take that back.
and I know they've had their issues so far, but that's still a legit lineup. I think they're pitching. As we said before the start of the season, their starting pitching has turned out to be a legitimate concern. But that's still a good team they face.
All right. Well, let's start bigger picture here, and we'll get into some of what happened on Tuesday night because it was an eventful game. Obviously, this is you had the 6 home runs. Mookie Betts hitting 3 of them. Ohtani knocked out after 2 innings with the blister issue. So we'll touch on all of that.
Daniel Bard's brother turned out to be terrible.
Yeah, what the hell is that about? That threw me for a loop.
Daniel Bard's brother might be worse than Daniel Bard.
Luke Bard getting out there on the bump. Good for him. Anyways, you want to talk about a baseball family? Look at the Bard brothers.
At least one's still helping the Red Sox.
Let's get into the bigger picture issue, which was before the game. You had the weekly power rankings that a lot of sites will throw out there, but I thought it was pretty notable that both ESPN.com and MLB.com had the Red Sox at number 1. They've officially they've taken the leap in those 2 respective entities' opinions and sit at number 1. So which brings me to my main question for you as we embark on this journey that is the NESN Red Sox podcast, Dakota.
Episode 3.
Episode 3. Are the Red Sox the best team in baseball right now?
Well, the power rankings are weird for me because I think.
Well, first you got to
power rankings
I know
are
where you're
like
going with this.
For me. Exactly. Like there's the reality rankings, and then there's like the current power rankings.
And it's a measure. How much you measuring what has happened based on how much you project to happen.
It's like when the Patriots lose during the regular season, they inevitably drop to like 3rd or 4th in the power rankings. But everyone knows who the number 1 team in the power rankings is.
Right.
And so the Red Sox right now. I mean, you can't argue with what they've done in their record. They've put up the best starting pitching numbers in baseball. Their offense scored the 2nd most runs, right behind the Angels. I mean, they definitely closed that gap last night. So, and they have what is it, 14-2 record now?
14-2.
Best in the big. So, I mean, what can you say? This season right now, they are playing like the best team in baseball. But I think, you'd be kidding yourself if you said anybody but the Astros was the best team. I mean, I think their rotation still is either equal to or more capable than the Red Sox, especially with the way Garrett Cole's pitching.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the team for me.
It's interesting too at those 2 losses where opening day and then the brawl game. So
right.
2 very notable games.
You said we always have an episode before something big happens. The other thing about this podcast is that Red Sox never lose in between episodes.
Yeah,
it seems.
Well,
every time we come on, we're like, well, they haven't lost in a week, basically.
So here's my rationale on this, because I'm still hesitant to say that they're the best team in baseball.
Yeah,
which too. Maybe that's on me. But because across the board, the numbers, I mean, you just look at how well-rounded they are, too. I mean, it's not like it's one specific area that's carrying them. And there's been parts where that starting rotation has been lights out. Other times, I mean, the offense is finally coming alive. J.D. Martinez is banging the ball. Really, anybody they slide in there, Zhu Lin, I'm sure we'll get into. I don't know what's going on there. But they just keep finding ways to win, I guess, and that's a very cliche thing to say, but it's interesting to show how many ways this team can beat you. But at the same time,
they've won basically every kind of game so far this season.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, I do look at the level of competition. I know the Yankees are a team that you kind of expect to be at least in the playoff picture until the very end. But the three other teams they faced before the Angels is straight garbage. I mean, you got the Rays, who they've played 7 times so far, the Marlins twice, the Orioles. I mean, that's those 3 teams are among the worst 5 teams in baseball. Not even just record-wise to this point, which is kind of a chicken and egg thing because obviously their record's going to be bad if they're losing to the Red Sox. But also, I think those teams are going to be terrible in the long run, particularly the Rays and the Marlins. So while you can only play the teams that are on your schedule, I get that. But there have been some times where they squeaked out wins against those teams, and I think that's why, for me, this upcoming road trip on the West Coast is kind of a big one from a Red Sox standpoint.
Yeah, but do you look at, like, for me, and not to go overboard with the NFL comparisons, but you know, we look at the Rays and we look at the Orioles and say, yeah, they're terrible, but I mean, those are division games. Do we look at those like, you know, to go back to the Patriots, but you know, the Jets stink every year, but you know it's going to be a close game because they play each other a lot. They know each other so well, and it's competitive. I mean, we've seen the Rays have terrible teams, you know, throughout the years plenty of times, yet they always seem to play the Sox close. And it might be a familiarity thing. Same thing with the Orioles. Like, yeah, they might not be as stacked as they were a couple years ago, but they still have good hitters. They still have Buck Showalter. Like, that's a team you can expect to play close. So, I mean, even though I know those teams aren't good this year, I still put some weight into, you know, running over them. Running over division opponents, to me, still carries some weight. Not the same as beating, you know, one of the best teams in the league.
Maybe this, for me, it's that I still think there is at least one team, being the Astros, and I'm also pretty high on Cleveland this year.
And I'm very high on the Diamondbacks.
So I just think that there's other teams that coming into the season I had slightly above them, and I haven't seen enough from them negatively, I guess, to offset,
right,
to bump them down a level. Like, I still feel like the Astros have their own issues to this point. I mean, their bullpen doesn't seem like they trust Ken Giles at the back, you know, in the 9th inning.
Right.
Brad Peacock's had a couple mishaps in the later innings. Offense went on a mini slump, but I think we could all agree that they're probably going to bounce back, particularly when the weather warms up. So I don't know. I just haven't. I'm not ready to bump them out of the top spot in favor of the Reds. I just want to see what happens when the Red Sox do get into a situation where they are playing better teams and also playing every day. I mean, they had a 6-day stretch early in the season where they had 3 off days. And now after the Angels, they're going to go play the A's, who suck. Then they're going to have another off day, and then they're going to have 3 against the Blue Jays, who I
kind
think
of suck.
I think that'll be an interesting
But again, it's another division opponent that even if they're not good, you respect it.
Before returning home to face the Rays, again, couldn't be any sicker of the Rays. Just have food poisoning of the Rays.
Well, then it'll help you get what you want later in the season because we're not going to play them as much.
Yeah, thank God. Get out of the way now. And then 3 against the Royals, who another team that has just been trashed this year. So I guess I'm hesitant to anoint them the best team in baseball.
No.
Until they just let me get into a workman-like grinding it out every day. I also want to see that the bullpen be tested a little bit more. Because the reason is I love what that rotation is capable of doing. I love what that offense is capable of doing. But I still feel like there are areas of weakness on this team that we haven't seen fully exposed, or hasn't been placed into a situation to be exposed yet.
Well, no, I think you're right, but I think the reason...
And this isn't taking anything away from what they've accomplished.
I think the reason so many people are still hesitant to buy in on the team is, I mean, the same reason for me. I mean, we've seen them be good the last 2 years. Maybe this is like a little better because the record is so good and they've gotten out to such a good start, but the problem is the last 2 years you've seen this team win the AL East with largely the same cast of guys, and both years they got into the playoffs and, didn't perform well. Did not play well at all. And you've seen them kind of come up short in big games. Can they hit good pitching in big games? And for that reason, I mean, I don't think there's really going to be any way they can fully prove themselves all year long, no matter how good they are. And especially, like, if they get up to a huge, if they get up to a huge lead in the AL East and have a great record, I mean, they could play meaningless baseball throughout much of August and September. And then we're still really not going to know how good this team is until the pressure's on in the postseason. And I mean, that's, it stinks for them, but I mean, it's just the reality of the situation. When you have good teams in 2 consecutive postseasons and you lay consecutive stinkers, it's going to be hard for people to buy in.
I'll say they're more entertaining than I anticipated.
Are they though?
I think they've been pretty entertaining so far.
I mean, no, I think so too, but I don't think they weren't entertaining the last 2 years. I mean, I definitely think they weren't.
I would agree, but
I mean, obviously we know there were different vibes around the team the last 2 years, and there were different issues. But like, I mean, still kind of the same entertainment, same the unpredictability, same bizarre gaffes on the base paths, running around all over the place. You know, more home runs this year, I'd say, but.
I think there's a little more transparency there with the Alex Cora factor. I think that you're getting, it just feels more real. You're not getting the same spiel, play-by-play commentary from John Farrell after every game.
It does feel like a less contrived operation. It feels a
little
more like they're just playing some baseball early on, which is really what we heard Pedroia before the season say. They had all this pressure day in and day out come in. You have to win, and it was so intense for them. And this early in the season, the pressure should be off a little bit. You should be able to allowed to go out, just play, and enjoy the early part of the season. And when the intensity ratchets up later in the year, it's time to really buckle in. But this early in the year, they should be enjoying themselves and playing loose. And maybe Farrell wasn't the guy to allow them to do that. We'll probably never know. I mean, Pedroia made it seem that way, but if Alex Cora can help these guys kind of loosen up and enjoy playing baseball in this part of the year, then yeah, I think you're right. And the transparency is a good thing too.
Yeah, Fangraphs right now has them projected to win 99 games this year, which would be, so they go 99-63. Head of the Yankees, who have projected to go 94-68, and that would be tied with the Astros for the best record in baseball, the 99-63 mark. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how many wins this team gets to. That's obviously a very early projection. I mean, where a lot of these teams that you see making a statement now aren't going to be there come playoff time. But
again, we said before the season started that the reason this team could win a division, not why they are better than the Yankees, but why they might be a team more well-positioned to win the division, is because of the starting pitching. And right now they're off to this great record, and as long as the starting pitching and guys don't get hurt and they don't fall on their faces, I mean, they should be able to relatively keep this up throughout the season. And they should be a team that can win the division because of the starting pitching, and they've been great so far. And if they keep it up, I mean, I see no reason why they can't get to 99 wins. That doesn't mean they're like a 99 win type of team,
right?
But they have the starting pitching to do it.
Yeah, I don't want my hesitation to anoint them the best team in baseball to come off as really that I don't think this team's gonna. I think they're gonna win the division, and I think they're gonna. I said they were going to go to the ALCS, and then we'll see what happens from there. So obviously I have high expectations for this team. Before I place the #1 label on them, I just want to get through a thicker part of the schedule. And like I said, that bullpen is one thing that concerns me a little bit. We've talked about this in previous podcasts. I just would like to figure out who's going to pitch that 8th inning.
Yeah, we don't
have the steady presence of who's going to be able to pitch the 7th and 8th. And consistently set even if you mix and match in those situations, in the 7th and 8th leading up to Kimbrel in the 9th, I just want to know that there's some sort of stability there to this point.
Well, I don't think you're going to get it. I mean, we've seen these guys. We've seen Matt Barnes.
And maybe that's why I have a little bit, some reservations.
I think everyone was hoping it was Carson Smith, and he just hasn't done it so far. I mean, there's still time for him to prove that he can do it, but right now, if Carson Smith isn't the 8th inning guy, you don't have one. We've seen enough of Kelly, Hembry, Matt Barnes, all these other guys. We know what they bring, and they're great in the 7th, and they can have they'll go out and have a really great game, and then the next one, 1-run game in the 8th, they're walking guys all over the place, and you can't rely on that game in and game out for your 8th inning guy. So that's why I wonder and this is a conversation for another day, but you got to believe a trade's coming at some point down the road.
I would imagine
for bullpen help, especially with how much redundancy there is on this team in the infield. Once Pedroia comes back, you got expendable pieces. You got to believe they're going to try and find an arm.
Yeah, this team has some pretty enviable depth. It's become pretty apparent, and not just defensively and where you can, where exactly you can plug these guys in, but where you can hit guys in the order. I mean, like Mitch Moreland, for instance. I mean, we had 3 hits on Sunday, and this is a guy. Mitch Moreland, to me, is a starter in the majors. Like that's a starting caliber player that you have coming off the bench.
Probably the best hitter on the Rays.
Exactly. So you have that guy coming off the bench. There's going to come a point where you might have Eduardo Nunez kind of being relegated to the bench, or obviously not playing quite as much once Pedroia comes back. I still think Blake Swihart, if given the opportunity, is a starter in this league.
Yeah.
You have the ability to play JD Martinez either at DH or in the outfield. Zhu-Wei Lin, I don't know what would be capable of in an everyday role, but I think certainly he has a future as a utility guy in the majors. So just a lot of depth on this team, and I think that, will that be enough to offset the other inefficiencies that this team has, most notably the bullpen over the long haul? Well, I mean, we'll see, but I think that is one thing that, if I'm going to start kind of weighing things out, which teams rank where, that's one thing I think the Red Sox do have that a lot of teams across baseball don't.
Yeah, they do have depth, but like I said, eventually it's going to become redundancy, which is still a relatively good problem to have because you can never have too many pieces, but it does mean you're going to have to cut bait with some guys. And I mean, that last night was a big game for Brock Holt. Not like one game can change your destiny, but to show that he still can hit the ball a little bit is big because, Zhu-Wei Lin's been making a pretty strong case to be this team's utility infielder.
Maybe it's a kind of a kick in the pants sort of thing, but
yeah,
it might be what Brock Holt needed a little bit to get going. Maybe he does realize that the competition is you come out of spring training and he essentially, you could say he won. Maybe it was by default by having past major league experience, but won the one competition battle that there was in that whole utility battle with Devin Marrero ended up getting shipped out of town. So now it's maybe with Zhu-Wei Lin back in the mix is kind of a little bit of an internal competition again.
Yeah, which is good. Competition's always good.
Guys, and to this point, it's obviously worked out well for all parties involved. So for me, like I said, I'm hesitant to put them at number one, but they are certainly there. I mean, I don't want to act like I don't want to take anything away from this team has accomplished thus far because, like I said, you can only beat the teams that you play, and they've taken care of business to this point. So I'm going to have, for my power rankings, I think I'd have them in the 2 spot, maybe between 2 and 3, with the Astros still at number 1 and the Indians right in there.
Yeah, I mean,
on that next level with the Red Sox.
Agreed. Well, if I'm doing just like
give me the top 5.
Again, it's hard. Like if we're doing this regular season, if we're doing right now this year, I mean the Red Sox are number 1. If you're asking me like my legitimate power rankings, so I think of the best teams in baseball, I'm going to ask.
Let's not call them power rankings then. Let's just ask you.
Astros.
Who are the 5 best teams in baseball, you think?
Astros, Indians, Dodgers, Red Sox, D-backs.
That's fair. No
Yankees because of the pitching. I can't. I'm sorry. I don't believe in the pitching yet. It doesn't mean that we'll see once that we get later in the year what Severino looks like. Tanaka has been a great postseason pitcher, but he's been terrible so far. Then again, I'm not trying to be some Sox homer that's just screw the Yankees and they suck. I told you so. But I just I know they did great last year, but it just doesn't. They have holes on that team. The question is, will they just hit so many damn home runs and hit the ball out of the park so much that it doesn't matter that their pitching kind of sucks?
You're big on the D-backs. You love the D-backs.
I love the D-backs.
Love the Snakes.
It's another. Paul Goldschmidt, especially. I mean, and I like AJ Pollock.
That
Zach Greinke's kind of an iffy ace because he's so soft mentally.
Yeah.
I mean, we throw soft a lot.
You love that word. You call everybody soft.
Zach Greinke,
you would think you were the most rugged guy in the world. Like when you get down chopping trees in Maine. It was a rugged dude.
What makes you think I'm
soft?
I don't understand.
So I'm sure you didn't like Ohtani coming out of the game last night with a blister then.
Again, I don't know with these injuries. It's like the David Price. It's like the David Price tingling sensation in the fingers.
Yeah, that probably didn't sit well.
Is that his fingers actually tingling? And that's a conversation for another day because I want to know if I want to know if Dave Dombrowski knew about the tingling of the fingers.
Rate your tingling on a scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah, rate the tingle. Yeah, let's have the tingle rater. But what were we talking about? Ohtani. Yeah. I don't know. Was that really a blister, or was that a case of, man, the kid, he sucks tonight. He's got nothing. Let's get him out of here before it gets ugly. And I don't know. The Angels. I mean, I like Ohtani.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So
they're a weird organization too. Asking fans to be quiet when he's up to the when he's playing, they ask the fans to stop cheering so loud, and now they take him out with a blister after 59 pitches. Like, I just wonder if they're really worried about babying him. Well, I don't necessarily blame them. He's a what's the term? Transcendent
Yeah,
talent.
transcendent.
Yeah. I almost said transcendental. I don't even know if that's a word. But, you know, I don't blame them for babying him, but I don't know. It was weird. 59. I mean, he had nothing, which is why he should have come out, because he wasn't pitching good. You knew if he went out for another inning, he was going to give up at least a couple more bombs.
Yeah.
But blister, I don't know.
We were like running down when we were talking yesterday, what would be the best case scenario for us to come in and talk about the next day? Like, what do you think's going to happen? Things like that. I'm not sure either one of us picked him leaving with the blister after the second inning, but
getting just absolutely slapped around the ballpark.
I think it might be one of the most fascinating outcomes of that game that they could have had. Because, as I'll tell you why. One of the reasons I've been hesitant to buy into Ohtani as a two-way player is because I'm anxious to see how they manage little things like this. A guy has a blister on his hand. Like, is this going to impact how much you DH him between now and his next start? You know, because a traditional ace or a traditional just starting pitcher in general, guy has a blister on his hand. You manage that over the course of 5-6 days, whatever, and then you roll him back out there. But now with Ohtani, a guy that's going to play 3 days a week, swinging the bat, do you factor a little nagging thing like that into how you deploy him as a hitter, and then ultimately how does that? I mean, this all falls on Mike Scioscia's shoulders now of how to manage this guy. He already said he wants to play more. And now he goes out and
Angels said they might play him more.
And it seemed like they're pretty open-minded to doing so. But does that whole mindset change when a guy develops a blister or a guy leaves the start early with a sensation? Don't forget he had that issue, the UCL issue.
Right.
When he first came over. That it seems like it's no big deal, but that gave me a little pause.
I mean, there's also we can throw the soft word at Ohtani too. I mean, just flat out saying no to the Yankees and the Red Sox and big market teams and hiding in Dodger light over there in Anaheim. Like, I don't know. Either way. But the problem with the blisters
is list of, not to go too far off the rails, but that list of, final teams from which you, picked from is kind of just random.
I'm saying, was he afraid of playing in a big, and I'm not saying I blame him, but
at the time, the reports were that his final teams were obviously the Angels, the Mariners, Rangers, Cubs, Padres, Dodgers, and Giants. So you got a lot of West Coast teams, so it seems like that was a preference.
I think, you're right. It was just
the West
Coast thing.
With him, there's a huge difference between playing in the American League versus the National League. I mean, he's DHing 3 days a week now, or whatever.
Right, he can hit more.
Can't do that in the National League.
Right.
You basically, at that point, you have to find a place for him in the field.
See, I think.
So I just want to know what went into his decision.
I don't know, but I don't know, and I don't speak Japanese, so I have a feeling I'll never know. But
it's never too late to learn. We'll get
but as far as the bleacher, the blister, and him, the management and whether or not it changes how they use him. I mean, they're already, they're doing a 6-man rotation to give him enough rest, and I think the more I thought about it, the fact that they're pitching him, every 6 days, and that he has these days off between hitting, I don't know if he's going to get worn out. It seems like a situation where because he's not focused so much on pitching or focused so much on hitting, and his routine is constantly changing. He just pitches and he's like, all right, I got a day off. Now I can kind of ramp up to hit a couple days. Now I got another day off, I can pitch. It's always constantly changing. So one, I don't worry about him getting worn down, and the fact that he has so much downtime, you'd think would help to manage things like a blister or something. Or maybe not a blister, but other nagging injuries. The blister is a different deal because if it is real, I mean, that can be a real nagging issue for pitchers.
Well,
Rich Hill's an example,
he had issues with blisters when he was in Japan.
Right, so that can be a chronic problem where you can give the guy as much time off as he wants. As soon as he, puts his fingers on the leather and tries to spin a ball 100 miles an hour, you might just get another blister. And that stinks because that ain't his fault. It ain't the Angels' fault. Maybe it is if they knew he had blister problems, but I don't know.
It's just the whole thing's fascinating to me because, and then it's just if you all of a sudden his performance does suffer in an area, albeit on the mound or at the plate, how long is the leash? How long do you go before it's like, well, maybe we should limit him to 2 days a week in the hitting, or if all of a sudden he to this point, he's outperformed. He's been a better hitter than a pitcher, even, which I don't think anybody really saw coming. So just like the balancing act that they have to pull is just, it's weird. And it's also weird, too, because he's an integral part of the Angels. Like, this is a situation where he's not really being eased into things. Like, and maybe that was part of the agreement to go to L.A. was the fact that they viewed him as kind of their ace already, as opposed to...
Because he is their ace.
Because, I mean...
He has the stuff anyway.
Let me put it to you this way. If he had signed with the Red Sox, I don't think there really are expectations. Like, the expectations are non-existent. I think you're just signing him with the intention of, this is a very valuable piece for our organization, and we'll kind of see what comes of it.
Right, and I think we talked about talked about this yesterday a little bit, where if Ohtani and the Red Sox had interest, so we know that they wanted him to some degree, and if he had come here, I mean, where would he play? What would his role be? I mean, you look at would they have gone to a 6-man rotation? Maybe that would have been their solution. But the fact that then he's DHing means you take at bats away from guys like JD Martinez or Hanley Ramirez. If it's going to be in a 5-man rotation, you'd have to trade some pitcher. You have a full 5-man rotation. So it's just, it's fascinating to me to think of how the Red Sox would have handled him.
Yeah, I'm not even sure he'd be in the majors.
Right? Would they have? Because the Angels said, we know he had a bad spring, but
if he had that crappy spring like he had with the Angels.
Yeah, which I mean, it's reasonable to think he would have. But either way, yeah, I mean, how would the Red Sox have approached this? And beyond that, too, another interesting thing with him is that we talked about a little bit was like, what is this guy's value going forward?
Yeah.
You know, if like let's say through the end of the year, not much changes with him. He ends up being an above-average hitter and an above-average pitcher that shows the ability to be elite. Let's say he was a free agent after the year. What do you think would be, his actual value or the kind of contract he'd command? Would the two-way thing be so tantalizing that teams would pay more, or would it be daunting from the aspect of maybe he wears down and it's such an unknown that they're afraid to give him a lot of money?
So, realistically, like taking into account his contract situation, what we know of him, all this, I think he might be the most valuable asset in Major League Baseball. One that's not proven, in other words. Like, obviously, a guy like Mike Trout will be like the most valuable asset, but from a prospect standpoint,
I mean, I'd say Bryce Harper.
Because
sure, yeah. But yeah,
I'm saying from a guy without a track record, without a Major League track record, because you're basically getting Ohtani at this point still is kind of a prospect. You've essentially brought in a Major League It's slightly different.
It's like you brought up Moncada in year one.
But he's 23 years old, so it's basically a Major League ready prospect. You factor in, the buzz factor, which is tough to quantify, especially at this stage. But also, this isn't a situation where they went out and broke the bank to bring in a Daisuke Matsuzaka or Yu Darvish, someone where they paid the huge posting fee. This is a guy who was, under the rules laid out by the collective bargaining agreement, an amateur. So you're essentially getting this guy, it's 3 years until he's arbitration eligible. You have him for 6 years until he could become a free agent. So you pretty much paid the $20 million or whatever it was, the posting fee. Didn't give up any assets. You're not breaking the bank. You're not trading prospects to get them. But at the same time, you could have an ace, or even better, you could have an ace and a guy who's an impact bat right from the get-go. So from that, it's just, there's so much unknown, but at the same time, it's I feel like that unknown kind of lends itself to the value.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. If all those things hold true, and let's say in 3 years, he still looks great. He's only going to be 26, so the age doesn't really change much. But he looks like an above-average or elite pitcher. I mean, do you think it's still too much of an unknown to give this guy? I mean, before he came in, people were talking up a $300 million contract.
So in other words, he could, in an ironic twist, he could hurt his value by being a two-way player.
Right, he could. Or, like you said, like the appeal of it is so massive that any team would just pay him whatever because they want that. They want the
unknown.
Thing.
You're right, because if he came over, established himself as an ace and only an ace, he's gonna make bank.
Right.
But the fact that if he comes over and he's just a kind of a number 3 type starter, but also an impact bat, like it's weird weighing like the the peak level of what he could be with one, if you focused on one aspect of it versus the two kind of,
for me, I'm
not as good as he would have been if he had focused on one aspect.
For me, I'm not giving a guy like that like a Giancarlo Stanton contract. I think it's awesome, and I'd love to have him on my team, but it's still so unknown. Even when he's 26, we don't know. If you give that guy 7 years, $280 million, we have no idea if his body's just all of a sudden going to break down from all the different stuff that he's doing. I mean, teams have been winning World Series for over 100 years without Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
And you can win one without him. So for me...
it's a strong take. That's only the best on the NESN Red Sox podcast.
You can win a World Series without Shohei Ohtani or Babe Ruth. We've learned that the last 95 years. And, for me, that I would just be like, let someone else do it. That's cool. It's great. Let someone else handle that because I'm not giving $280 million to a guy who could just, fall off a cliff all of a sudden. So there's no precedence. There's no way.
Fortunately for the Angels, they're not going to have to do that. So we're obviously talking in hypotheticals, but I do wonder if if they do get to a point where they try to lock him up, because the thing about this guy is he's obviously not motivated by money. It wasn't the financial aspect. That's not why he came. Because otherwise he could have stayed in Japan for another 2 years and then come over and before ever playing in a major league game, landed a huge contract. So he kind of took a gamble on himself. I think the allure of playing in Major League Baseball seems to mean something to this guy. Why? I still don't even really know why he picked the Angels. Specifically, he was very vague in the introductory press conference.
Maybe he just loves LA but wanted an American League team.
Yeah, I mean, it could be something simple as that, but he's obviously not motivated by money. Otherwise, I think he would have stayed in Japan and then come over in 2 years or whatever.
And I mean, it might be as simple as he, wanted to go to California. I mean, he wouldn't be the first person. You ever been to California?
Yeah, great
it's
place.
Awesome.
Great
so
place.
I mean, if I was someone,
if
I was someone, I would want to play in California. It sounds like a lot of fun. So for me, it might not. There's not really too much mystery. I think he wanted a team that would promise him he could hit a lot, and he wanted to go somewhere cool. And LA is kind of cool. It's a little gross, but it's kind of cool.
Well, one thing so it was a little disappointing though that you couldn't get the full experience of what he was capable of.
But we should see him hit tomorrow. We should see him hit tomorrow.
It's true, yeah. So we'll see how that
unless the blister just explodes tonight.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was the level of hype certainly reached a peak after his first 2 starts.
When you can see it, what do they even call that stadium? Angel Stadium? I don't know.
Angel Stadium.
You looked around the game last night. Half the advertisements were Japan Airlines.
Yeah.
Just looking at the outfield, it was a bunch of Japanese type stuff. So I mean, they're all in, and I mean, not surprised. I think when Daisuke was here, the Sox did the same thing.
So I'm sure you saw this, that ESPN came out with a list of listed the top 100 players for 2018.
I did. Yeah, they released the top 50 today.
Top 50 today. They had the 100 through 50 or whatever yesterday. 2-part series. Ohtani was at number 52 on that list.
Yeah, it's too high.
I agree. I think that based on the unknown factor, that's way too high to all of a sudden be slapping on that guy after as good as he's been in the early going. It's way too high. The Red Sox, meanwhile, they were
back to the Red Sox.
So yeah, I'd like to circle back to the Red Sox.
A little Ohtani tangent.
Well, I just find him to be a compelling guy.
Me too. I'll talk Ohtani.
I think he's one of the most fascinating stories.
And his tops to go back into the Ohtani. His Topps Heritage autographed rookie card, which I think they're only like 300 released in the packs. Already going for like $10,000 on eBay.
Yeah, you getting it yet, or you a cards guy? You'd strike me as you'd be a Topps trading cards type of guy.
I'm a big sports memorabilia guy.
Yeah,
big card guy. Not just baseball. Baseball's cool, but there's other stuff out.
You put it in your bike spokes.
My what?
you don't know people.
Oh, the bike. Oh, you mean like clip the card in? Yeah. No, I didn't do that. Yeah. If I did that when I was actually riding bikes, it probably would have been a Pokemon card. Would have been a Charizard card flapping in the wind.
You're losing me now. I was never a Pokemon guy.
Well, that's your loss. It says a lot about you, and answer some lingering questions that I had.
Sorry, Dakota. I don't do nerd. Andre, our producers.
That's fine. I do.
All right. Anyways, this list.
Just a baseball nerd.
Yeah. No, I'm actually a very, very big nerd. Seven Red Sox on this list of the top 100 players. At least if I counted correctly, I think there were 7.
Did you save them on your computer?
I listed them out.
That's
hopefully
good. You
I
showed
didn't
up prepared. I was just trying to remember.
Overlook anybody. Chris Sale being the top one at the top Red Sox representative at number 8. All right, let me read through the top 10 here, just to give you an idea of where the ESPN.com was going with this. Number 1, Mike Trout. Number 2, Clayton Kershaw. Number 3, Jose Altuve. Number 4, Max Scherzer. Number 5, Bryce Harper. Number 6, Corey Kluber. Number 7, Nolan Arenado. Number 8, Chris Sale, as I just mentioned. Number 9, Joey Votto. Number 10, Carlos Correa. I think it's an interesting list because trying to differentiate. There's a lot of alternating back and forth between position player and pitcher there. I don't know if that was by design, but I think it's difficult to weigh which one, who's better overall for the season. I think that's
if you look at their
basically
blurbs,
the same as the MVP debate. I mean, it's essentially what you're getting into there.
But if you look at their blurbs under each player, I mean, they cite WAR a lot, they cite ZiPS a lot, so they're clearly going on the analytics, which is why Joey Votto is in there at age 34.
Which is very interesting, because if they are citing WAR, and Joey Votto is very high on this list, for that very reason, I would assume, why then is Mookie Betts 17th on this list behind the likes of a guy like Giancarlo Stanton? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, do we have Mookie's WAR?
Mookie Betts is number 17 on this list, which I think is a bit too low. And maybe if you want to call me a homer, that's fine. But
I do think it's too low. But I don't have his WAR right in front of me compared to those guys. But
let me tell you right now.
Okay.
Because you want to know who's got the WAR. Your boy's got the WAR. Your boy has all the WAR that you could ever want. Only 2 players have a higher WAR than Mookie's, according to Fangraphs, since the beginning of 2016. Mike Trout and Chris Bryant.
Okay.
Mookie Betts is number 3 on that list, 15.2 behind Bryant, 15.4, and Mike Trout, 17.7, who obviously is number 1 on this list and just kind of on his own little planet when it comes to making these types of rankings. I just don't.
ESPN lies. We've heard it before.
Well,
but yeah.
So
I think you're right. Mookie should be.
So he's at 17. I listed the top 10. So I mentioned Stanton. Stanton's at number 13 on this list. He's getting booed out of the Bronx already. He's at number 13 on this list. Aaron Judge is at number 16 if you want to throw another Yankee out there. 1 ahead of Mookie Betts. I would put Mookie ahead of Judge, I think.
Yeah.
Just based on more of a track record. Maybe over the long run, Judge does. I thought Judge was going to take a big step back this year, and I'm kind of eating my words now because I think from a plate discipline standpoint, he's probably better than I gave him credit for.
We'll see, because that dude can slump. He
can
knows
slump,
how to slump, so we'll see when it happens.
We'll see, but I don't know. I think Mookie's too low. It's coming off in. You got to preface that by saying we're coming off a game in which he hit 3 home runs.
Right, and that's why I feel like it's more glaring
to
see him at 17. But if you think about ESPN probably compiled this list before the season, and Mookie had, for him, a down season last year. And, I mean, it really looked throughout last season like that he could not hit outside pitches. He couldn't take balls the other way. He had no outside power or opposite field power. And he looked much easier to pitch to than the year before. Maybe that's just because there wasn't much protection for him. Maybe the move up to the leadoff spot is giving him better pitches to hit at the beginning of the game. That's why he's looking so much better. But, I mean, I think if you just looked at how last season went for him, you'd say, yeah, this dude's one of the best guys in the game, but maybe he's not the top 5 guy we thought he was the year before. Whereas now you've seen him club 3 home runs, and Angel Stadium, you're like, oh, this is, yes, he is one of the best players. So, I mean, I think for me, he's a top 15 guy. Top 10, tough because you got to put pitchers in there somewhere. And then is he better than Trout, Harper, Arenado? No, maybe close. But
none of those guys. I think it's just a weird, double standard almost the Votto is the classic example of you're just weighing, if you put all your emphasis on the wins above replacement, you know, you've got to put all your eggs in that basket, then I would think that would be a favorable thing for Mookie when it comes to a ranking like this. I just think that you would then bump him up a little bit, because a lot of Mookie's value is derived from his all-around ability. I think it's, in that sense, it's very similar. Listen, Mike Trout's the best player in the world. I know that. And the
you know that.
like, so I'm not saying Mookie is better or even on a level with Mike Trout, but I think when you look from an analytic standpoint, I think Mookie Betts is kind of a very similar case. Like, he's not going to have the 45, 50 home runs that'll jump off the page like somebody like Giancarlo Stanton, but the analytics will back up how good of a base runner he is, how good of a defender he is, how good, you know, his overall impact beyond the traditional offensive stats. So I just think that you get that with Mookie a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, with you know, everybody, analytics-driven league loves Mike Trout, and I just don't think Mookie really gets the credit maybe he deserves in that area.
I don't know. I also just think, looking at ESPN's ranking now, I mean, there's some weird stuff. They have, I'm sorry, I'm not a Dallas Keuchel guy, but they got him higher than Noah Syndergaard. They got him higher than Gary Sanchez, Zach Greinke. I don't know. It's a weird list, and Luis Severino is higher than all those guys after 1 year.
Should note, only pitchers higher than Chris Sale, who's
real quick. Go through the list
8
of the Red Sox that made it and where they fell.
Oh, so I mentioned seven Red Sox on the list. Chris Sale at 8, Mookie Betts at 17, JD Martinez at 27, Craig Kimbrell at 35, Andrew Benintendi at 61. That's an interesting one. I think that's basing a lot on potential. Obviously, he was good last year, but that's still, I think, maybe.
Yeah, because 280 with 20 homers is not top 100.
Yeah, that might be jumping the gun a little bit. David Price is an interesting one too, because he's at 81. I think we all know what he's capable of, but
which is if they're projecting,
for better or worse,
he probably shouldn't. Yeah, because if they're projecting, then he probably shouldn't really be on there.
And Xander Bogaerts at 85.
Looked like, yeah.
So a couple notable ones. Sale being at 8, the only 3 pitchers ahead of him. Clayton Kershaw at number 2, Max Scherzer at number 4, Corey Kluber at number 6.
I mean, I would put JD Martinez above Josh Donaldson. That's a weird one, looking at it right now. But
only reliever ahead of Kimbrell, Kenley Jansen, 28.
Terrible this year.
Terrible this year. But that's, I don't know. I'm not going to split hairs over that one. It's kind of a toss-up, I think, if you go back for a fairly decent chunk of time. But I don't know. Just an interesting little exercise that they did.
Yeah, as usual with most things they do, it's interesting, but it doesn't make a ton of sense.
No,
but it's fun to talk about.
But I just think we could, you know, to tie it back into what we've seen, you know, last night, but over the early portion of this season, of just this Red Sox offense and what you've kind of seen from whether it's their approach or Mookie, because I think Mookie is a pretty interesting case, because it's pretty clear that he's looking more like the 2016 version of himself,
right,
as opposed to 2017.
Right, and I think the move to the leadoff spot is helping that. He's getting more fastballs early in the count. Guys aren't allowed to put him in deep counts and then give him these outside breaking balls. You know, he's jumping all over that first pitch, and the man in the lineup that usually gets the most early fastballs in the count is the leadoff guy, and so you want your best fastball hitter in that spot.
Yeah, he didn't really seem to take too well the kind of the jockeying between being the leadoff guy versus a run, like the run producer, you know, batting third or fourth. I don't know. It seemed like he didn't take too kindly of that. And now that Alex Cora has made it abundantly clear that, you know, you're my leadoff guy, maybe that's just kind of a hidden layer to this thing, because you can look at why he's been so good and point to so many things, whether it's, you know, just really he's laying off bad pitches and barreling up favorable pitches is what it boils down to. I think the common misconception is that he's being a lot more aggressive and swinging at a lot more pitches, but you look at him, he's actually swinging at a fewer percentage of pitches this year than in years past. It's just a matter of being better at selecting pitches.
Right.
But I do think there is some value to also knowing your role and knowing you're not going to be jerked around, even if you do go into a slump for a little bit.
Yeah, no one likes to get jerked around.
No, I don't think that's the case at all. But all right,
where do you want to go from here?
There's so many ways. But you got any thoughts on the MLB? I like to wrap it up with that. Our thoughts on Major League Baseball as a whole. That's.
I mean, yeah.
What are your thoughts on the brawl? Just because we haven't touched on it.
I don't know. For me, it was cool. I'm glad they fought. It was good to see some passion back in the rivalry. My big takeaway is that Christian Vasquez did not, do himself any favors in that.
Yeah.
As a Blake Swihart.
I never know what goes on leading up to those things, though. Who's to say Joe Kelly wasn't like, let him come out here?
Either way, got to run out to.
That's kind
the
of
huddle.
It's kind of the Buster Posey thing with the Hunter Strickland, Bryce Harper brawl of like.
Well, that's on Buster Posey too. You got to get out there and try and move some bodies. I don't know. So the brawl was all right. It was cool to see like that the teams still don't like each other. Tyler Austin is definitely.
What a puke, huh?
Yeah, I was just gonna say puke.
What an absolute puke.
Yeah, I think it was our own Mike Cole that tweeted an image where it compared Tyler Austin's face post-brawl to Tanyan Sturtz's face post-brawl. I can't remember what year it was. Maybe it was the 04, I don't know. But
yeah, that was the 04 one.
Yeah, Tanyan Sturtz also just looked like a total puke. But beyond the brawl, as far as around the leagues, there's usually a lot of stuff that like bothers me or kind of grinds my gears. There wasn't much in the past week. I did hate what happened to Devin Marrero in Los Angeles. Did you see that? Devin Marrero, D-backs, former Red Sox.
Yep.
He cranked it was like 5-1 D-backs. He cranked or 4-1 D-backs. He cranked a 3-run home run to left field, and I don't know what Alex Avila at first base was doing because the ball clearly was gone, but Alex Avila retreated to first base, and so when Devin Marrero rounded, he for a brief second passed Alex Avila, and they kind of corrected each other, ran around the bases, 3-run homer, and then after review, it showed that Marrero briefly passed him, so they called him out and gave him a 2-run single, so he didn't get credit for his first D-backs homer. And I just hate that because again, it's what are we doing here? We're using replay to see if the guy's foot, past the other guy's foot for a split half second. So now he didn't actually hit the ball over the wall. What's the point? What did him passing the guy change at all? It's a stupid. Imagine if that happened in the World Series.
Nothing grinds my gears more watching a baseball game than when it's like a challenge at second base over whether a guy's stealing, overslid the bag slightly, and whether the guy's glove stayed on him, and it's like, well, whether his right index finger came off the bag.
Right.
Because I don't know. That's not what I want replay for.
I like it for
obviously
did the ball cross the
dead
fence?
Horse.
That's a good one. But did the guy's shoelace surpass the other man's shoelace for a millisecond, and now we're going to take away a home run? It's stupid.
Yeah.
It's too much replay. We're seeing it in every sport, and I don't like it.
Well, fortunately, to offset that angst, we had Bartolo Colon giving everybody a feel-good moment.
That was fun.
He's the beans.
The best part of that whole thing for me was after Colon came out and saluted Reddick, who broke up the no-no. He's sitting in the dugout, looking like Bartolo Colon.
Yeah.
And he's just looking up at the roof, just bouncing the ball off the roof, like some 8-year-old in timeout.
You just look at
trying
him.
to pass the time.
He just looks like a guy who checked out 10 years ago, but it's just still finding his way on the rosters and still justifying being there from time to time.
Who's a more I don't know, better or cooler, more interesting super old pitcher, Jamie Moyer or Bartolo Colon? Bartolo for me, no doubt.
It's
just from the aesthetic.
The optics of it, but I
the
don't
optics
know.
of it, yeah.
Jamie Moyer was pretty sweet. Not only that, but Bartolo Colon's a spring chicken compared to when Jamie Moyer finally walked away. He started in 49?
I don't know if it was that, but
I'm pretty sure he was 49
years old. Who's your favorite all-time old man professional athlete that really kept it going, whether longer than he either should have or just way too long? Like for me, Jaromir Jagr pops to mind. Julio Franco is a big one.
Jagr's got it.
I don't know about the NBA. Karl Malone.
Jagr,
how old is he?
Jagr, I'll pick him based solely on when everybody was trying to vote him into the All-Star game too, when he started pleading with fans not to vote for him because it was going to disrupt his vacation. Because he's like, I've been to so many of these to begin with. Guys, you stop screwing my vacation.
I want to go.
So I thought that was a pretty sweet move. Not to mention, he clanged iron about 45 times in the Bruins 2013 Stanley Cup run, and then comes out and he's like still like a legitimate playmaker a few years later. So I love Yager. Oh, big soft.
What about football? Tom Brady obviously is one, but I mean it's hard to say he's an old man because he's still one of, if not the best. Sebastian Janikowski is a funny one. I think he just signed with the Seahawks.
Any kicker who played
Vinatieri is a good one.
Any like 65-year-old kicker who had the one bar face mask, I'll always have a soft spot for. Yeah. One of the 17 Grammatica brothers, I'm sure I could throw into this conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot. Kickers.
Vinatieri's getting there. I think he's going to be 45. Something.
He's got a sweet gig, man.
He's getting there.
Anyways.
But anyway, I just like old dudes in sports.
We'll leave it on that take. Not to.
if you in the Twitter blurb say in this NESN Red Sox podcast, Dakota reveals he likes old dudes. I'm never coming near
the NESN Red Sox podcast supporting ageism, I guess, since its inception.
Yeah.
All right, that's where we hate young people, love old people, and now we're gonna check off and go do some other stuff. Very versatile people here, so. Dakota, it's always a pleasure. We'll check back in next week after, I mentioned how this little homestand road trip for the Red Sox is a big one. We'll check back in. I'm sure something will happen tonight. If not, whatever.
Yeah, see you next time.
Adios.